Hi, everybody. This is Marilyn. Do we have audio for this? I'm hoping, maybe. Thank you. Hello, everybody. This is Marilyn, and it's time for the Welcome to My World. And this is the August 8th is today's date, and it's about noon. So I thought I'd just take a minute to go over some of the things from this morning. This market didn't really hand us a huge amount of wonderful stuff this morning. There's been quite a little bit of chop. Gold was pretty difficult to trade. The indices are all pretty much on the same page. NQ has been a little stronger than the rest of them. And TF just couldn't quite make up its mind which way it thought was a good way to go. But bonds gave really nice trades. I'll show you my bond chart in a second. And I don't know if anybody trades the Aussie dollar, but something made it very happy today. Not sure what that is because the dollar didn't move much. And then we had a couple of nice trending runs on crude oil. So looking into the afternoon, if you've been watching crude oil, I don't hold too much expectation that crude oil is going to continue this. I mean, it may go on up, but it's not likely to go very far. When you see these kind of runs, this one started, in the middle of the night. But there was a trend catcher entry here. What time was that? It's about 2 o'clock in the morning, about the time London opened. But when you see a nice run like this, and then it backs off a little bit and gives you an apex E right here, this is certainly a nice apex E coming off of a deviation level, and then this was, if you were patient, this took a lot of peeing, believe you me. It took this, the better part of an hour and a half or 2 hours to complete this thing, but finally did it. And it looks like it's trying to make a second one. When you've had two like this, that third one typically is a little bit shorter. And what happens is the first one is the best one, and then the second one sometimes is almost as good, and then the third one starts to get a little bit shorter. And then after the third one, rarely do you get a fourth. But what happens is you get up there somewhere and it starts into its little choppy, bunched up apex baloney that we've all learned to avoid like the plague. So we've got bonds here. I want to show you this because this was a really nice use of the apex indicators this morning. This was about about 8:30. I noticed this backing off of the high of yesterday. Went up here and touched it, and when it came back down, this took quite a bit of patience to fool with too. But when it came off of this was a really nice run down here to the low of yesterday, which basically was, I believe that might have been Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday night right here. And then, I mean, there was plenty of 10 ticks in here, and I think I got 14 out of one of them. And then on this, when it started to come up here, and if you waited for it to clear this big magnet right here, then this again, and you could get in with the trend catcher right here because it definitely flipped. The trend flipped right here, and it went on up to settlement. And Daryl, in a number of those tapes, keeps mentioning that once something has gone one way or the other, it's like the bats returning to the cave. They tend to run back to settlement if they can possibly do that. Settlement is a really, really big magnet. So let's see. We've got the VIX trading a little below 12, which it's been hovering right in that mode. It's going to have to, for this to go on down, that VIX is going to have to start coming up a little bit, and I don't see it being too inclined to do that. One of the reasons that the gold has been in kind of a slow, choppy thing is that its volatility index is not, it's not being very enthusiastic one way or the other. But we didn't have too much news this morning. But tomorrow morning, we're going to have, at 8:30, we'll have a couple of numbers out, U.S. numbers. 8:15 is CAD housing starts. And at 10 o'clock, we'll have a couple more. So 8:30 and 10 o'clock tomorrow morning will give us a little something. And then, let's see, I get mixed up on these Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays. Yeah, we do have bond auction this week. Yeah, the 10-year notes are tomorrow, and then 30-year long bonds, Wednesday, and 30-year long bonds will be Thursday. So if you're a bond trader, kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So I don't see too much else. There's been some really, really good questions asked in the chat. So if you've just logged in or you have been out for a while, scroll back up there and get some of these. There are some new people who have come in, and I want to welcome all of you. Some of the new people are asking really good questions, and that is the way to get the help and get on track the soonest possible. And Craig has been wonderful about putting in some real good tips. He's got a golf club analogy in there that for all of you golfers out there probably makes a lot of sense to you. And the new people, for heaven's sakes, ask. This morning, I got real busy working on a little project here this morning. I'm trying to get a few things nailed down in my workspace. And I didn't pay too much attention. Last week, I was zeroed in on those magnets, and I finally realized what I was doing was I was putting way too many for way too much information that probably isn't going to amount to too much. So now I'm trying to be a lot pickier about those magnets, and I'm working on a way to simplify that to some that are very useful. If you notice, a bunch of those magnets that we've called end up being deviation levels and markers on these zones, the buy and sell zones, and other assorted things that are basically already on our charts. So sometimes when you get into overkill and you get information load, what happens is you start trying to analyze till you're paralyzed and end up making yourself crazy and not really getting a good result. So another thing I saw in the chat this morning, which was excellent advice. is for newbies. I think Denali doesn't put a lot of stuff in here, but boy, when he does, please pay attention, because he's been around for a long time and has some really good tips. And one of them was to, for newbies, to look at the alchemy. It's a very simple, I mean, if you're trying to learn the I-zone, the IZSS, great. If you see the trades and it's making sense to you, fine. If you're getting frustrated with it, take a look at the alchemy. I find, I'm like Denali, I find that a little simpler to, it just works better. Everything at Apex is so incredibly accurate. It's just blows my mind. But each one of these strategies will all work. It's a matter of finding what your brain and your eye gets coordinated to see. That's really and truly all it is. Lori has got herself zeroed into that C's like nobody's business. But everybody has to find their own little strategy of what they see best. So question in here, the buy and sell zones are on the chart. It's an indicator, and it's already preloaded on some of the templates. Let me tell you the name of that thing. That is the institutional zones. And right here. It's Apex Diagnostic Institutional Zones. So if you look on indicators, those after Apex Diagnostic, then the rest of those, all the indicators are in alphabetical order. So scroll down to the Apex Diagnostic Eyes and find Institutional Zones. And depending on the background that you have chosen for your chart, you might have to alter the colors on that thing. Leonard, settlement is on all the charts. I think the standard color for settlement is cyan. Settlement is the #1 thing to look at anytime you open a chart. It is where that market, whatever you're looking at, settled the last session. And so that's kind of like ground zero. And if you are trading above settlement, it's an indication to you that the bus driver is in a northbound humor for the day. So when you are north of settlement and you have green apex E's and green trend lines and trend flip and all that stuff, then what you're looking for is an entry for a long entry. And the converse is true. If you're below settlement, then you should be starting at least, I'm not saying the market won't go slightly below settlement and still have green, whatever, because it can do that. But I'm talking about a significant move down. For instance, if you look at my crude oil chart, settlement is down here, I think around 4180, 4181 or something like that. And it's been putting green E's. I have mine light blue to show up on a green background, but they're green. That's green E's anyway. And that is what you would expect. So don't be trying to short crude oil here unless you have a clear and present signal to take a short on it. And maybe somebody else sees one, but I don't. This is a matter of probabilities, and we're